teacher is creating an assignment worth 70 points. The assignment will consist of questions worth 1 point and questions worth 3 points. Which equation represents the situation where x represents the number of 1-point questions and y represents the number of 3-point questions? Well, what they're asking is for an algebraic representation. So x is for the 1-point questions. I don't know how many there are. And we're going to add to that 3. Our 3-point questions are represented by a y, and the total is going to equal 70 points. Well, this question's done, so x plus 3y equals 70 is choice D. Right triangles LMN and PQR are similar, where L and M correspond to P and Q, respectively. Angle M has a measure of 53 degrees. What's the measure of angle Q? We start by drawing a diagram, and we label the angles. And the last piece of information that we're given is that angle at M is 53 degrees. Well, this question is testing to see if you understand that similar triangles are congruent and have equal angles. And since the angles are equal and M corresponds to Q, then Q must also be 53 degrees. And we see that 53 degrees is choice B. Here we're given 2 equations, and we're asked the solution to the given system of equations is x comma y. What is the value of x? So they want the x component. Looking at these two, the easiest way to solve these is going to be substitution. And since I know that the minus 3x is equal to y, I'm going to go over here and replace this y with the minus 3x. Since the minus 3x replaces the x, which was positive, the new equation is, I then subtract 4x minus 3x. So I see 1x equals 15, and that choice is choice C, 15. Here we're asked, which of the following equations is most appropriate linear model for the data shown in the scatter plot? Well, what they're asking for is the best line of fit. So we'll just draw one. That looks pretty good. And the 2 pieces of information that we need to take a look at here is, first, this has a negative slope. Notice that these 2 have a negative slope, so these are 2 possible answers here and here, but these 2 are out because they have a positive slope. And the next thing is that when x is 0, y is about, looks like 10.1, so the correct answer for this one is B. The graph of y equals f of x is shown, where the function is defined by f of x equals ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx plus d, and a, b, c, and d are constants. For how many values of x does f of x equal 0? Well, they're asking for the zeros of the function where y is 0. And there are 3 places where y is 0 along the x-axis. And they're approximately minus 1, 4, and 7. So the answer is C, 3. Vivian bought party hats and cupcakes for $71, and that's total. Each package of party hats cost $3, and each cupcake costs $1. If Vivian bought 10 packages of party hats, how many cupcakes did she buy? Well, in order to do this, we're going to need to set up an equation that represents the model to find out how many of each that she bought. Let's set up an equation that uses the given information. So for $71, we know that she had $3 times an unknown number of hats and $1 times an unknown number of cupcakes. But then it says she bought 10 packages of party hats. So I'm going to replace the H with the 10. Here we're going to do 3 times 10. And then I'm going to subtract 30 from both sides, which then shows me that 41 equals 1C. So there were 41 cupcakes times $1 each. And that's the final answer. Here we have an equation that is set equal to 0, and it's asking what are the solutions, what are one of the solutions to the given equation. In order to do that, we can factor it. In order to factor this, we need 2 numbers that multiply to minus 24 and add up to positive 10. So let's list the factors of 24. So our first guess would probably be 4 and 6 because 4 times 6 is 24 and 4 plus 6 gives us 10. But the problem is that they have to add up to a positive 10. So that wouldn't work if one of these was negative. But if this one was positive and this one was negative, it would multiply to minus 24 and it would add up to positive 10. So let's make the two binomials. So to get x squared is x and x. One has to be positive and one has to be negative to give us a negative here. And we knew that this would be minus 2 and positive 12. Let's just multiply out just to make sure that we're right. So x times x is x squared. Then I have 12x minus 2x minus 24. And these two will multiply to give us our 10x. So now this part over here, it says what are one of the two solutions. So we'll do both of them. So we take these two binomials and we set them equal to 0. So I have x plus 12 equals 0. And I have x minus 2 equals 0. So this one would give me x equals 2. And this one would give me x equals minus 12. And either one of those would be the correct answer. Bacteria are growing in a liquid growth medium. There were 300,000 cells per milliliter during an initial observation. The number of cells per milliliter doubles every 3 hours. How many cells per milliliter will there be after 15 hours after the initial observation? In order to do this, we need to start with an initial exponential equation. So we'll do y equals a times b, and the exponent would be x over k. And let's define what each of these are. So A will be our initial 300,000 cells. B will be the increase by a factor of 2. K, it doubles every 3 hours. And X would be the number of hours for the experiment. In this case, it'd be 15. So now I'm going to substitute each of those values into the exponential equation. Once we have this, then we can simplify our exponent. In PEMDAS, we do the exponent first, so 2 to the 5th power is 32. And then finally, multiplying 300,000 times 32, we get 9.6 million, which is choice D. We're asked which expression is equivalent to the expression given. And the first thing that I notice is this over here looks like this was factored out. There's more than one way to do this. So what we're going to do is I'll write the equation here. So looking at both of the terms, I see that I can pull out a 6. And we'll keep a running total inside here. So if I take a 6 out, this would become a 1. I'll put it there. And then I have x to the 8th y squared plus 2 x squared y squared. Well, the next thing that I can take out, looking at the x to the 8th and the x to the 2nd power, I can pull out an x to the 2nd power. So that changes this exponent to a 6 and completely pulls out this x squared. And finally, common to both terms, I have a y squared, so I'll pull that out too. So once we're done with that, we see that we have 6x squared, y squared. Well, all of them have that. And then we're looking for x to the 6 plus 2 inside, and that's choice C here. This question is not asking for specific information about what x or y is. It's just an interpretation of how the question is worded. The first thing that might pop out of you is this word here. I believe it's pronounced hectare. And a hectare is a 10,000 square meter area. And since we in the United States use imperial measure instead of metric, this word doesn't pop up too much for us. But now it says here that the park is 2 hectares. So this here, let's go down the list. The average number of trees per hectare in the park. Well, this one That's good. The average number of trees per hectare in the residential area. Well, the residential area was Y, so this one is not correct. The total number of trees in the park, it's not the total number of trees, it's the number of trees per hectare times 2. So this one's not correct. And then the final choice here, the total number of trees in the residential area, it's the 2 goes with the park, so this is not a correct answer either. In looking at this graph here, there's a couple things pop out at us. First, it has a negative slope. And the second thing is that our company A and company B comprise the X and Y axis. Let's look at the narrative. So it says the graph shows the relationship between the number of shares of stock from company A, X, and the number of shares of stock from company B, Y, that Simone can purchase. Which equation could represent this relationship? Well, let's look at the first one. This is in y equals mx plus b form here. So since this has a positive slope, this one's out. Let's look at the next one here. So to see if this is going to fit our graph, the first thing we need to do is solve for y. So we'll subtract 8x from both sides. And then we have to divide each term by 12. And I'll also check to see what the x-intercept is, which is where y equals 0. So first I subtract 40 from both sides. Then I'll multiply both sides by negative 3/2 to get rid of the negative coefficient in front of x. So what I see is when x is 0, y is 40. And when y is 0, x is 60. So these work. So this appears to be the correct answer. Let's look at the last two choices to see why they don't work. Choice C is out because if I look at this, I have a positive slope of 12 over 1, so C is out for that reason. We would have to solve D in the same fashion, so I'll go ahead and do that. First, we move the 12x to the right side. Then I divide all three terms by 8. So here we see that this choice doesn't work because when x is 0, y would be 60. So here's x is 0, y would be 60. It'd be up here. So that choice also is out.